Most people watch Gervonta Davis and see his power, but today we're going to be watching his state changes. And a state change describes where your body is. It tells us where your head is and where your weight is. So a state does not describe movement. It describes where movement starts and where movement ends. So we're going to be tracking where his head is, where his weight travels, and how he builds counters off of those positions. And so right here, Tank's lead arm is extended, which puts him in bladed high, head and weight towards the rear foot. Tank's going to use that lead control to keep his opponent's hands in that high guard. So on the next beat, he could throw this rear hook to the body. All right, Tank starting in square high, head and weights over that lead foot. So on this first beat, his opponent's going to jab as Tank pulls square. And pull square meaning he's pulling his weight straight backwards while keeping his shoulders square. Then on the second beat, his opponent's going to throw his rear straight as Tank throws his check hook. And note, throwing the check hook, that allows Tank to step this lead foot back. And the reason why it works is because he ends in bladed high. Then we get some movement. Okay, Tank's in bladed high, which allows him to turn over this rear straight. Then he's going to go ahead and step this rear foot out, looking to weave and then pendulum away. Let's look at his opponent. He's going to go ahead and throw his jab rear straight as Tank pulls square. Then on the second beat, Tank's going to push off this rear foot, fold out his jab. Then he's going to double it up again with a rear straight to the body. And then we get some obstruction. All right, Tank's in square high. He's going to fold out that jab rear straight. And then he's going to put himself in square low, which allows him to weave to this rear foot and pendulum away. Then we're going to get a jab rear hook, another weave. So Tank's going to throw his lead hook, rear uppercut, and then extend his lead to control his opponent. Now Tank's over that lead foot, which we know is square high. He's going to throw a jab to the body, and we know it's a jab to the body because he ends with his head over that lead foot. He'll go ahead and pull square right here, throw a rear hook, weave, and pendulum. All right, Tank's heads over this lead foot. He's going to fold out a double jab rear straight. Now, here's a neat tidbit. By extending that rear straight, it puts his head and weight over this lead foot. Now, he's pushing off the toes of his lead foot, extending back his rear foot, putting him back into bladed high, which allows him to double up his jab and then throw another rear straight. We'll have a lead hook, weave, pendulum, and some movement. Okay, so his opponent's going to throw his rear straight as Tank drops, and a drop is just a waist bend to your open side. We're going to get another one as his opponent throws a hook. Then we're going to get a tie up. And another break. Tank's going to back up here, throw a rear uppercut, jab, straight. Let's look at his opponent. His opponent's going to throw a jab rear straight as Tank drops, getting under that straight. We have some movement. And tie up. Break. And a quick 1-2. All right, this is neat. Tank's going to go ahead and fold out his jab right here. Then he's going to go ahead and pull square, counter with this rear straight, which puts his weight on that lead foot. He's going to throw his lead hook. Then we're going to get a jab straight. And let's let this play out a bit. We'll get a little obstruction. Okay, Tank's head and weights over this lead foot, which we know is square high. He's going to throw this lead hook, which puts him in bladed high for this rear straight. And then we're going to get a little bit of a shootout. And we're going to just let this run again. I think the shootout is because we are at the end of the round, and we're going to speed through this corner. All right, Tank starting in square high, head and weights over that lead foot. So in this first beat, his opponent's looking to jab as Tank bobs down. And a bob is just a waist bend over his lead foot, putting him in square low. Then on the second beat, he's going to push off this rear foot. Note the rear arm wrap, head under his opponent's armpit. Then he's going to do a rear foot step up, turning towards his opponent's back. Then we have a tie up. And a break. We'll have some lead hand control. And more movement. Now I love this. Watch how Tank folds out this jab, and note how his head ends up over that lead foot. He's going to fold out another jab. And then pendulum away. And we'll have another tie up. A little bit of holding. Break. And we're going to find a little bit more holding here. Again, we're just going to let this play out. Okay, Tank's going to double up this jab, rear straight to the body, double up the jab, rear hook to the head, and then back down, double up the jab, rear straight to the body. All right, they're both throwing hooks here, but Tank doesn't have the reach advantage. Now, his opponent's going to throw this rear straight as Tank drops into bladed low. Then he's going to counter with this rear uppercut, rear straight, lead hook, rear straight. And then we're going to get into a little bit of a firefight. And so Tank's going to double up that jab, rear straight, lead hook, rear straight to the body. Then he's going to pull square, jab straight, and then bob down over that lead foot into square low. Now Tank will throw his jab, rear uppercut, then pull square, and we know he's pulling a square because he moved his head and weight straight back while keeping the shoulders square. Then he's going to come back with this rear straight. And we're going to let this play out a bit. Obstructed view. We have a tie up. And a break. All right, Tank's in square highs and a drop 45, which is a waistband to his open side. Catch that hook to the body. Then he's going to go ahead and pull bladed, rolling with this lead hook, putting him in bladed high. And then once again, we're going to let this run a bit. And again, we're going to speed this up in the corner and get to the next round. Okay, his opponent's going to throw his jab rear straight, and then he's going to look to double up this rear straight as Tank drops into bladed low. And note, his head and weight is over that lead foot, which allows him to pick up this rear foot, swing it around, pivoting on this lead foot. Then we get another tie-up. And a break. Now his opponent's going to jab as Tank drops into bladed low with a drop 45. He's going to throw this rear uppercut, and then we're going to get another check hook. And watch his lead foot. He stepped his lead foot back while throwing that check hook. And then we're going to get some more movement. Again, we're going to let this run for a little bit. Control. All right, Tank's going to get grazed with this rear hook, but what's really neat about this is how he pendulums off his rear foot to his lead foot, turning over this rear straight. That's pretty slick. Okay, his opponent's going to throw his rear straight as Tank drops to bladed low. Then he's going to look to pull to bladed high with that hook. And then we're going to get a tie-up. Break. Then let's watch a little bit of the action. And right here, we're going to get a little bit of a corner talking. Some infighting. Wrestling, controlling his arms. All right, back out in the ring. I like this. Tank's in bladed high, rear hands loaded. He's going to throw his rear straight lead hook. Boom, boom. Now, he wasn't able to fully extend on those two punches, but that did give him enough room to extend on this next rear straight. All right, Tank's going to throw a rear uppercut, reload, rear hook, rear straight. Now we're going to look for the same pattern. Rear uppercut, reload, rear hook. Then we're going to get into another firefight. And they both know this is the last round and it's almost over. And I figure we'd hone in on one last pattern, which I like. He's going to throw his rear straight, lead uppercut, rear straight. And that is a wrap.